The Seahawks beat the 49ers 29-13. It is November 22nd, 11/22/15. And this is, well, normally we would say this is real in the Field Gulls, but Danny, first of all, Danny, did you watch the game?
I did watch the football game, yes.
Oh, wow, okay. So do you know what the title of the show is today?
Real in the Rawls goals. No, Rawls in the Field Gulls.
There you go. You got it. Your first attempt was admirable, but then you realized that real sounds exactly like Rawls.
Yeah. All in the Field Gulls.
Rawls in the Field Gulls, instant raw action show. I mean, I said it from the beginning. This morning when Marshawn Lynch was announced to be inactive, I said the Seahawks are going to score 100 points with Thomas Rawls. They didn't get quite there, but Thomas Rawls did have the game of his life so far. I mean, he's going to do a lot better than he's going to keep on having games of 210, 250, sometimes 300 yards. So get used to that. But Rawls finishes 30 carries, 209 yards, a touchdown. He also had 3 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown. Danny, what were your thoughts on Thomas Rawls? Was were the seas parted by a terrible San Francisco defense? Was it the offensive line having the best game in their careers, only to be shot down by God with lightning strikes every time throughout the game? Like, no, you can't have a good game. Boom, injury. What did you see from Thomas Rawls today?
I think he ran really, really well. I really like his style. I think he brings
Raleigh well.
Yes, I think he brings a little bit different element to the offense than Marshawn Lynch does. He's a little faster. You know, he did a couple of his runs. He got out into the open field and then ran away from guys, particularly on that touchdown reception that he had later on in the game. But I think he's just, part of it is obviously the 49ers are bad. Part of it is the offensive line did a good job of blocking. But I really like to see what his yards after contact was for this game, because he was breaking a lot of tackles, in the backfield or just past the backfield to pick up those big runs. And he had quite a few explosive runs. So all in all, really, really good game. I like how he finished his runs. Obviously, I think that was what the Seahawks really like too, is, he's never running out of bounds. He's always looking to punish the guy that is about to try to tackle him. And I think that gets old for people as the game goes on. You saw he kind of had, he ran really, really hard all 4 quarters and finished the game strong. So really encouraging from him. Huge game, obviously. He did really well in the passing game as well.
How many rookies do you think have rushed for 100 yards against the 49ers?
For the Seahawks or for any team?
Any team.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Let's say
lots of games.
Let's say 15, I guess. I don't know.
You're close. I mean, I think that those kind of guesses, I don't even know what to expect. If you had asked me that question, I might have said 50. It's 21. This was the 22nd time. Todd Gurley also did it earlier this year. But what do you think is the most rushing yards a player's ever had, a rookie running back has ever had against the 49ers?
How many yards?
Yeah, what's the most a rookie has ever rushed for against San Francisco?
Let's say 150.
It's 144.
Wow.
So Rawls destroyed that, and he just destroyed it. And this is
a storied franchise too.
Yeah, this is a great franchise, long, lots of games. Eric Dickerson did it twice in his rookie season. He actually had 144 and 142. So he had the 2 biggest games, Eric Dickerson, against San Francisco as a rookie. And let's remember some things. Eric Dickerson, for example, was the 2nd overall pick in the draft. Todd Gurley in another era would have been the 1st or 2nd overall pick in the draft. He was highly drafted. Thomas Rawls is undrafted. He just came straight out of Central Michigan. He came onto this team, and it was like him and Rod Smith, and you're looking at it, and you're saying, well, these guys don't have any shot to make the roster because they've got Marshawn Lynch, Kristen Michael, and Robert Turbin. And now it's quite clear that, why they got rid of Michael and Turbin and kept Rawls. Do you remember – I remember when the Rawls was added, you were pretty excited about him.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts when Thomas Rawls came in? How much of a shot did you really give him to make the team?
Like when training camp started, I actually didn't really think he would. I thought he had an outside shot of being the 5th guy. and I wasn't sure how many the Seahawks would keep at that point. Obviously, they did end up keeping 5, but they kept 2 fullbacks instead. But obviously, trade Kristen Michael, which in hindsight looks like it made a lot of sense and was smart because he is now on a practice squad. And then obviously,
why is Kristen Michael so bad?
Well, I mean, I think it's probably more of a mental thing than a football thing. Obviously, I'd heard something along the lines of like he didn't wear a suit on the Cowboys trip or something like that, and that pissed him off. But I think obviously, okay. For instance, one play in this game, Thomas Rawls, there was a blitz by Jaquiski Tart, Jaquiski. I don't know how do you say his name, Jaquiski.
Just call him Tart.
Tart. Where Tart came off the edge on a blitz and had him dead to rights in the backfield, and Thomas Rawls broke the tackle. And then while he's breaking the tackle, he switched hands to the right side and then ran for another like 20 yards. He can do that while he's breaking a tackle, and Kristen Michael can't even run with the ball in his left hand. Like, it's just a matter of like just attention to detail and some of the things that I just don't think that Kristen Michael gets it at this point, and maybe he won't ever get it. So I don't know. He's physically gifted, obviously, but he just whatever it is. I guess there's a lot of physically gifted people in the NFL, and whatever it is he did wasn't enough to make it worthwhile.
I mean, the Cowboys signed Robert Turbin last week, and they immediately I forget if it was Jason Garrett or the offensive coordinator, but I remember reading that they immediately fell in love with Turbin. He had 7 carries for 35 yards today, and he played pretty well. And then a bigger surprise, perhaps, is the Kansas City Chiefs. They've won 4 in a row. They were good. 1-5. Now they're 5-5. Spencer Ware, 11 carries for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns.
God dang it, Seahawks.
So, but the fact that they have Thomas Rawls, clearly, I mean, they played the Chargers, who are just abysmal.
They're bad, man.
Yeah, they're one of the worst teams in the league. It'll be interesting to see because. It'll be interesting to see who gets that number 1 pick because there are a few teams right now. The Ravens, having lost Joe Flacco, the 49ers, obviously. There's a few teams that could be lining up for those picks, but the Seahawks won't be one of them. They get to 5-5. They're 1 game out of the wild card behind the Atlanta Falcons, 2 games behind the Vikings, who they play in 2 weeks. And the only other 5-5 team, due to all the losses today by the 4-5 teams, were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they went off. Jameis Winston, the first rookie in NFL history to have 5 touchdowns and no interceptions in a game. They knocked down the Eagles. So it was going to be the Bucs.
The Eagles have a good defense too, which is just
well,
he tore them up.
So what are your thoughts on the Atlanta Falcons? Because they've lost 4 of 5, and they've lost to bad teams. So
I know. I was just going to pull up their schedule here because it's been kind of embarrassing for them. Obviously, didn't they start out like 6-0 or something?
They started out 5-0, and they've lost 4 of their last 5. I know I saw something that Mike Florio tried to put together. Like he always tries to sort of piece something together to make it a story. But like he's like, oh, the Falcons have fallen apart since Roddy White said he wanted more catches or something.
Oh, brother. Yeah. Okay.
So, and just to be clear, Roddy White said that when they were 4-0. So he was like, they did go on to win their next game, but it was pretty close. So they said it. But it has nothing to do with that. The Falcons, I knew you could have seen them when they were 5-0 that it was probably the funny thing was that they should have actually gotten to like 8-0 because they had the easiest first 5 games. And then they were upcoming against teams that were starting backups and a really crappy schedule. So do you see that the Falcons, what do you think the playoff chances are for the Falcons, even with a 1-game lead?
I think, let's see here. So the Falcons they won the first 5, then they lost to the Saints. They barely beat the Titans 10-7. They lost to the Buccaneers. They lost to the 49ers. Now they've lost to the Matt Hasselbeck-led Colts. They have a tough schedule coming up. They have the Vikings, Buccaneers, Panthers, Jaguars, who are actually playing a little bit better these days, the Panthers again, and then the Saints to end the season. So I actually think they're probably not going to make the playoffs at this point. They're basically battling for a wild card spot at this point. There's no way they're going to catch the Panthers, I don't think.
Right. No.
And so, I mean, they have a tough path to it, and the way they're playing, I mean, they just look terrible lately.
Right.
So
No,
It doesn't look promising for them.
the Panthers, I mean, they're 10-0, so I guess the Panthers, if they get to 11-0, they could clinch the division next week, actually.
Really?
By
Wow,
week
that's
12.
crazy.
So, because they play on Thursday night again at the Dallas Cowboys, and if the Panthers win and the Falcons lose, that'll be a 5-game lead with only 5 games left. I guess the Falcons, if they can beat them twice and then win the rest, then I guess that they couldn't clinch it. But basically, they're right there to close to clinching the division, probably to clinching the number 1 seed. Because the second place team is the Packers at 7 and the Cardinals. That the Cardinals they play while we're recording this. But yeah, it's I don't think that the Falcons can hold on. The only question now is, do you think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are reasonable competition, or that one of the teams that are 4-6? I mean, it seems like the Seahawks playoff chances are pretty good without looking at like any sort of projection. They seem pretty good.
Right, I think they are, and I think of all the likely wild card teams, I think the Seahawks are probably easily the most talented and probably the best of them. So as long as they can start kind of stringing some consistency together, I think they'll be good. But of course, that's a huge question for them, because every time they play well, it seems like the next week they don't play well, or they still have these issues with defending against tight ends, which showed up again today, and frankly, Blaine Gabbert looked all right playing today. So it just kind of depends. But the Seahawks, obviously the Seahawks play in Baltimore, and Joe Flacco tore his ACL today, so that's surely going to help the Seahawks. The Ravens have had some crazy injuries this year. They play in Minnesota, which will probably be, outside of that final Arizona Cardinals game, that's probably going to be their toughest test the rest of the year. But I think things set up for the Seahawks to make a run of this thing. And I mean, it's not been pretty, but I think they're still probably one of the favorites for a wild card at this point.
What do you think is the most yards a rookie running back has had for the Seahawks? Or I should say, how many times do you think a rookie running back has rushed for more than 100 yards?
How many times have they rushed for more than 100? 20 times. I don't know.
I told you this. We talked about this before the podcast.
I know. I was trying to pretend that I don't remember.
Oh, I thought you were going to. What I was setting you up to be like, I thought you were going to say 12.
It's
and then
12.
I was setting you up so that I could say, Danny, do the honorable thing and say that you knew the answer.
That was me. That was me pretending to not know.
Thomas Rawls did it for the 3rd time, though I think it counts twice because he did rush for 200 yards. But he did it for the 3rd time. Again, it's insane that this rookie undrafted free agent has rushed for 100 yards 3 times. He has 2 games with more than 100, with more yards than Marshawn Lynch has ever had in his career. And that game, by the way, that Lynch rushed for 153 yards was in 2007. He was a rookie. Kurt Warner, by the way, did it 6 times, and he has the record. He had the record 207 yards. Rawls beat that today. Thomas Rawls is only the 2nd rookie in Seahawks history to rush for 600 yards in a season. He won't catch Kurt Warner, who had 1,400 yards as a rookie, but he could still get to 1,000. Because what do you think? What is your gut telling you about Marshawn Lynch's gut?
I don't know. It feels kind of ominous, honestly. I hope that he's not going on the IR, because that really hurts their depth at that position. Obviously, you really like how Rawls ran today, and you'd think that he kind of earned a lot more touches going forward, I would hope, even if Marshawn is healthy. But you just love having depth at the position. You love having multiple guys that can go out there and really punish defenders. And I know that Lynch, when he's healthy, is that guy. So while I really like the idea of Thomas Rawls being more featured in the offense, of even potentially, getting more carries than Lynch, not necessarily starting over him, but getting equal or around the same amount of catches or rushes as Lynch, I think that would be great. But I think I really definitely hope he's not, going to the IR. I think that is a kind of a scary proposition. So hopefully it's not whatever it is, the hernia, sports hernia, or whatever they're afraid of. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but hopefully it's just something that's like a few weeks.
Speaking of IR wondering what do you hear about these injuries? A lot of guys went out of this game, maybe not so severely, but a lot of guys did go out of this game. What are the early words about the injuries?
So I think Doug Baldwin has a sprained ankle, and he's probably nothing serious. There's who else is it? Remind me. There were a couple of linemen that went out with stingers.
Patrick Lewis.
Patrick Lewis has an ankle injury, and his status is up in the air, but it's nothing
Justin
serious,
Britt.
I don't think. Justin Britt got a stinger. J.R. Sweezy got a stinger, so those guys will be fine.
What is a stinger?
A stinger, I don't know. I've actually never had one. I don't know what it is.
I hear it all the time and go, oh, shit, a stinger. That don't sound so good.
Stinger, it's something to do with like your shoulder, I think.
It sounds
it
painful.
Hurts like a hell.
For obvious reasons.
I'm going to look it up as we're talking here. But yeah, I don't know.
Let's see if you can do it faster then. A stinger or a burner is an intensely painful nerve injury. The nerve
there you go.
The nerves that give feeling to the arms and hands originate from the cervical spinal cord. As these nerves leave the neck, they form the brachial plexus. See Figure 1. So it's something there in Figure 1. But yeah, it sounds like it hurts them arms and hands and the back and the neck. Yeah. So yeah, sounds no good, but also sounds like
I think it's just painful, but not like something you need to worry about long term.
Like a cramp.
Sort of, yeah.
When's the last time you had a cramp there, Dan? People on the message boards want to know.
I don't know. It's been a while.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't exercise to speak of.
A lot of these injuries, it seems like we get them as kids, like shin splints and Charlie horses and stuff like that. But then it's not like something you would get in your middle age.
Yeah.
Probably more because we were doing PE and stuff. There should be a more adult PE, I think.
There really should be. You could probably take classes at the Y or something like that.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I did do dodgeball a little while ago, like a couple years ago, in a dodgeball league. So the other thing I think the big takeaway for this game was Russell Wilson. He had 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. He did that against the Panthers in the playoffs last year, but he hasn't done that in the regular season since 2013.
Yeah, that's like 30 games or 29 games.
Yeah, so he raises his passer rating. He had a 138.5 today. He came in with a career low 91 something. But definitely, I'm the type of guy, there's this guy, Sam Hawkbadger. And I think anybody that follows Twitter or whatever has probably seen some Sam Hawkbadger tweets. And he is very much a fan of Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. And I am in the same vein in that I hate it when he throws interceptions because I like those pretty numbers at the end of the year. And he did raise it up. So he's got 13 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I'm not sure what his updated pass rating is. I don't feel like searching it out. But it was a pretty good game.
I think I saw it's like 98 something.
That would be phenomenal.
Which is pretty darn good, yeah.
I mean, if he got it over 100, that would be if he finishes with over 100, that would be 103 of 4 seasons, which is just, that's some Steve Young, Aaron Rodgers type shit. So I would love that. And I also think that this is a game that hopefully the Seahawks, the last few years, they struggle and then they have this game, it seems like, where they just dominate and they realize that they're good and they play well for the rest of the year. What did you think of Russell Wilson's game when he kind of came in with a lot of people saying that he was struggling?
Yeah, it was a hard week for Wilson. Obviously, he played pretty bad, I think, against the Cardinals, and that was a huge game for the Seahawks. So came in with a lot of criticism, and some of it was kind of dumb and some of it was warranted. But I think he played really well in this one. Obviously, the stats would agree with that. But I think in terms of the eye test, he did a really good job in the pocket. I liked a couple of plays where he kind of moved around in the pocket and made the right decision in terms of whether to throw or run. He was a little more accurate today. I think his accuracy percentage was like 80 something, which is a career high for him. And so, obviously you're happy about that. Obviously you have the caveats of the 49ers are terrible on defense, but this is what you want your quarterback to do against a bad team. And he did it. So I think overall I was really happy with how he played. There was one other throw that he could have made to Tyler Lockett downfield where he kind of sat and threw off his back foot a little bit, didn't get his feet quite set, and he overthrew him a little bit. I think that's one throw he wishes he had back because that would have been a big, huge touchdown pass. But that was pretty much the only one I remember him like really missing.
Deshaun Sheed replaced Kerry Williams in this game. What do you think of that?
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Kerry Williams has not played well. I'm a little surprised it actually took this long because it'd been multiple weeks now where Kerry wasn't playing well. And, teams were kind of attacking him. He was one of the weak links on the defense for several weeks, obviously. And so, I don't know. It makes a lot of sense for them to do that. It'll be interesting to see if that holds for next week or if it was just a one-off thing for this week. Guessing they'll probably have it be like a competition in practice again. But I thought Shed held up all right, and the whole cornerback thing is too bad because I think the Seahawks felt that their hand was forced a little bit during the offseason when they had to kind of spend in free agency before the draft because they didn't know what they were going to do in the draft. And so you kind of have to have something going. And they kind of figured, I think, that they were going to lose Maxwell. And obviously he got paid like out the yin yang. So
yeah. And,
I think their hand was forced a little bit, but
we talked a lot about tight ends. Vance McDonald came into this game with 64 yards on the season. He had 4 catches for 65 yards and his first career touchdown. I thought that the Seahawks were good on defense, like with their linebackers and Cam Chancellor and all that kind of stuff. And they used to be one of the best teams in the NFL at stopping tight ends. So why do they suck?
Honestly, I don't know. It's really frustrating for them to not have fixed that issue because it's happened. I think there's, they've thrown stats out like in the 5 losses the Seahawks had this year. They've had a touchdown. They've given up a touchdown to the opposing tight end in every one of those losses in the fourth quarter. So it's really frustrating to see that, that's happened again. Obviously they didn't lose today, but it's like the same freaking route every time. And for whatever reason, they're not figuring it out. I think Earl Thomas was kind of joking about it a little bit after the game about, kind of how like they know they have to figure this out and they're trying to do it. But I don't know. It's weird. I wonder if it's one of those things where they don't know what's like happening, or if they know what's happening and they're just not able to fix it, or what. But it's one thing to watch going forward because it's just really starting to piss me off. It's just the same thing every time.
I mean, yeah, we're looking at their upcoming schedule. Steelers this week. Heath Miller, is a pretty good tight end. Then you got the Vikings. I don't know. Kyle Rudolph's been quiet for a while, but again, Vance McDonald. So it doesn't really matter who these guys are. The Ravens losing Joe Flacco for the year, so that should be an easy game for them, you would hope. Then the Browns, hey, Gary Barnidge. Why can't we figure out how to do something like a Gary Barnidge,
Yeah.
Then the Rams, who've already beaten us with a tight end, and the Cardinals as well. So there are still some more games coming up that they need to figure out how to lock that down unless they're going to play like this on offense every week. Tyler Lockett, 2 touchdown catches. He came into the game with 1 in his first 9 games. Did you see any sort of mixing it up in a positive way with the offense as far as their usage of receivers and Tyler Lockett?
I'll have to look at that. I didn't notice anything in the game broadcast. I did notice they actually did have some success with screens this week, which is a little bit surprising. But no, I'd have to look on, the all 22 to see what they were doing in terms of all that. I didn't see anything that really stuck out. I just like that they're going after him or going to him downfield. I think they need to do that at least twice a game. Just take a shot downfield.
That was so close. If Wilson hadn't overthrown Lockett on that, with 3 touchdowns, I mean, that would have been huge. It was rookie central today, man, with Tyler Lockett and Thomas Rawls. I don't know if what's his face? Oh, Frank Clark was out there. Was Frank Clark out there?
Yeah, he was. It was him and Cassius Marsh kind of replaced Bruce Irvin.
Gotcha. So yeah, statistically on defense, 2 sacks for Cliff Averill. I think that gets him to 6.5 on the year. Didn't see any sacks from Michael Bennett or anybody else on the team. So hopefully they can get a couple more of those. So a good win. They're just a game out of the wild card, Any other thoughts there, Daniel?
No, I mean, just again, it was a good win. People are probably going to give a lot of caveats to this game, but I just think anytime you beat a division opponent at, anywhere, that's a good thing. This is the kind of game they needed, I think. Like you said, Russell Wilson hasn't passed for 3 touchdowns in several years in the regular season, so that was big for him, kind of get the monkey off his back a little bit. The running game looked really good, so that's huge. The offensive line looked pretty good. They didn't have quite as many stupid penalties, which was huge. They just played a lot better, and I think that's something that hopefully they can build a little bit on that and go forward.
I don't think I need to look it up, but the Seahawks scored in all 4 quarters today. I'm sure that has not happened all year long.
Yeah, they had a fourth quarter touchdown, which I think was only like their 3rd or 4th this whole season.
Steven Auschka got out a couple of missed extra PATs while he could,
Got those out of his system,
Yeah. Don't know what happened there. Hopefully Hauschka's okay, because he doesn't we're going to need some solid-ass kicking probably down the stretch, and if they make the playoffs. Films, did you see any films this week?
I went and saw the whatchamacallit, the Hunger Games finale. I thought it was
how was that?
I thought it was all right. I haven't been huge on that series in general. I mean, I think it's been gradually worse. I think the first one was more fun.
Right.
And then I don't know. They've been all right.
71% on Rotten Tomatoes. So.
That sounds about right. I didn't think it was bad, but I thought it was. There was a few moments where I was kind of bored, to be totally honest. And then the ending was kind of felt like it was a little bit rushed. I don't know.
The first movie was based on one book.
Right.
They had to take out and parcel out the third book into 2 movies. You're diluting the pool. You're diluting the product, and you're saying, yeah, we don't have 4 hours worth of material, but we're going to figure it out somehow. We're going to throw in some boring ass bullshit. But I read the first 2 Hunger Games books before I saw the movies. So I don't read books. So it was pretty important to me to do that and to finish it out. But I'm looking at it right now on the shelf. I haven't read that Mockingjay. I can't get past the first 50 pages. So I probably won't see the movies. And I didn't go to any movies this week or last week because, and this is a message to Hollywood, I'm tired of your November bullshit because there ain't nothing good worth seeing. Spectre didn't get that. It's only 64% Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm not a big Bond guy, so I don't need to go out and see it unless it's got 80%. Then the highest rated movie out is the Peanuts movie. I'm not a child. I don't need to see that. Then give me this crap like Love the Coopers, the 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, Goosebumps. Bridge of Spies seems boring. Why don't
they
care.
release? They got such a great lineup at Christmas. Why don't they release them and stagger them a little bit?
Christmas is gonna crush. Christmas. Yeah. You've got The Revenant. You've got
Star
Wars, Hateful Eight. There's a new Will Ferrell movie. A couple others that I'm forgetting. The other thing that came out this week that I probably will see this week and we can talk about next week on Real and the Film Goals is The Night Before with Seth Rogen.
I'm looking forward to that. I think that looks funny.
So that one, it's got 64% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is just in the wheelhouse for dumb stoner comedy.
Kind of surprising, actually.
You thought it would be higher?
Yeah, I kind of thought it would be higher, but that's fine.
Not the biggest JGL fan, to be perfectly honest with you, but I'll give it a go because it's got those guys.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, that would be.
Yes.
Okay. For all the lay people out there.
For all the laymen. Rayford Guzman says a lazy and not very funny stoner comedy. So Rayford didn't like it. But then again, you go over to Rebecca Keegan and she says a raucous and refreshing new take on the Christmas movie. So speaking of,
opinions are assholes.
Right.
Wait, that's not how it goes.
Assholes have opinions.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to Krampus. Have you seen the trailer for that?
I've never heard of that. Krampus?
So that's another Christmas movie, but this one is from the people that brought you Mallrats and Clerks, Kevin Smith. It's about, so you've got Christmas, which is the holiday, and Santa Claus, but then the evil side of that on the opposite side is Krampus, which is like an evil Santa Claus that comes to kill you on Christmas or something like that.
Yikes.
So it's like a horror movie, and it looks kind of good. It's got some good actors in it, like Adam Scott and
He's funny.
others. Yeah, so Krampus, once we get into this Christmas movie season, we're going to stop talking about Seahawks altogether. We're going to go straight about movies.
That's when the real season starts.
Thank you. That is true. And the end of this podcast is now. Follow us on Twitter at Field Gulls, Kenneth Arthur S. Go to fieldgulls.com. Subscribe to this show so that you're getting that every Thursday and after every game. Next week it'll be the Steelers, another 1:00 game. Is that correct?
I think so, yes.
Because the only early game they have left.
125. I can't remember.
Well, yeah, one of those. The only early game they have left is at Minnesota, and that'll be a big game, obviously, especially if they can win next week and get to 6-5. Yeah, and then subscribe to 3000 NFL Mock Draft. That comes out again tomorrow. Me and Rob Staten talk about the draft. And every Wednesday, subscribe and listen to Deep Balls with Danny and Jackson Bevins. And that's it. The Seahawks won, but the only thing that we really care about is Thomas Rawls. He is everything. Don't give a shit if the Seahawks even win anymore, as long as Thomas Rawls gets his carries. So
totally
all about T. Rawls. And that's it. Goodbye.